The heat of a Houston summer has a way of settling over the city like a heavy, inescapable blanket. But inside the air-conditioned sanctuary of my middle school classroom, the world always felt vibrant, crisp, and full of possibility. My name is Aisha Zaytoun. At 32 years old, my life was defined by the beautiful, bustling rhythm of a woman who wore many hats. A dedicated science teacher, a proud daughter of Egyptian immigrants, a wife, and a mother. Every morning, I would stand before a classroom of energetic, easily distracted adolescents, guiding them through the wonders of cellular biology or the mysteries of the solar system. I took immense pride in being a steady anchor for my students. To me, education was not merely a career, it was a sacred calling. I aimed to be the person these young minds could turn to for guidance, not just in science, but in navigating the messy, formative years of their youth. When the school bell rang at the end of the day, my focus shifted seamlessly to the center of my universe, my family. I am married to Ahmed, a man whose kindness is etched into the very lines of his face. He is a hardworking, resilient soul who pours his energy into running a small local business, always coming home with a gentle smile despite the exhaustion of his long hours. Together, we were building a life anchored in love and shared purpose. Our home was constantly alive with the sounds of our two children. Layla, our 8-year-old, was a sharp, observant girl who possessed an innate curiosity about the world that mirrored my own. Adam, at 5, was a bundle of pure, unadulterated joy, chasing his sister through the hallways and filling our rooms with infectious laughter. On the surface, and deep within my soul, my life was peaceful. It was a normal, happy existence, woven together by the quiet blessings of a stable home and a loving family. Underlying every single aspect of this life was my faith. I was born and raised in the United States, but my identity was profoundly shaped by the heritage my parents brought with them when they immigrated from Egypt. They left behind the familiar banks of the Nile to build a future in America, but they carried the timeless treasures of their faith, family, and community across the ocean. From the moment I could understand speech, I was taught that Islam was the compass by which we navigated existence. I grew up within the warm, carpeted halls of the local mosque, listening to the melodic recitations of the Quran and learning about the profound humility and justice of the Prophet Muhammad. My beliefs were never a passive accessory. They were steadfast and absolute. I never harbored a single doubt regarding the existence of Allah, nor did I ever find myself questioning the intricate, beautiful tapestry of Islamic teachings. I was deeply proud to be a Muslim woman. My hijab was not just a piece of fabric or a cultural custom. It was a deliberate, joyful crown, a visible symbol of my modesty, my faith, and my unwavering commitment to the Creator. I felt with every fiber of my being that I was living exactly the life I was created to live, serving Allah through my daily actions, raising Layla and Adam with strong moral values, and contributing meaningfully to the Houston community around me. Yet, despite the fulfillment of my daily routine, there was a quiet, sacred dream that had slept in the corners of my heart since girlhood. I had always dreamed of performing Hajj, the holy pilgrimage to the ancient city of Mecca. To a young girl growing up in Texas, however, Hajj felt like a distant, almost mythical milestone. It was something reserved for the elderly, for those who had lived a full lifetime and accumulated vast wealth, or for those who had spent half a century meticulously saving their pennies. It was a crown to be placed upon a life at its twilight, not something a young mother in her early 30s could easily grasp. I prayed for it, of course, but always with the quiet assumption that it was a destination waiting for me somewhere in the far-off fog of old age. Then came 2019, a year that shattered my expectations and reoriented my reality. It was an ordinary afternoon when Ahmed came home, his hands trembling slightly as he held his phone. We had entered our names into the official Hajj lottery, a process where millions apply and only a fraction are chosen. When he delivered the news that our names had been drawn, a wave of profound, breathless shock washed over me. We had been selected. The opportunity of a lifetime had bypassed decades of waiting and knocked directly on our door. The immediate reaction was an overwhelming flood of joy and excitement that physically took my breath away. Tears of gratitude spilled over my cheeks as I collapsed into a prayer of prostration on our living room rug. This was my moment. It was a tangible realization of prayers whispered in the dark, an invitation from the Almighty to walk in the dusty, ancient footsteps of prophets, saints, and the millions of believers who had journeyed to the heart of Islam for over a millennium. I could hardly believe that I, Aisha, a school teacher from Houston, was being summoned to the house of God. The months that followed the announcement were a whirlwind, characterized by intense physical, mental, and emotional preparation. Hajj is not a vacation. It is an arduous spiritual migration, and the reality of planning for it was deeply taxing. Ahmed and I spent our evenings cross-referencing checklists and securing the necessary travel arrangements. There were medical clinics to visit, painful vaccinations to endure, and practical logistics to arrange for Layla and Adam, who would be staying behind with their grandparents. More than the physical logistics, the spiritual preparation required a deep, introspective conditioning. I purchased books on the rites of Hajj, memorized specific supplications, and spent hours practicing the steps of the rituals we would perform. I felt the call of Allah growing louder and more resonant in my heart with each passing day. I recognized that this was far more than a physical journey across continents. It was a rare, golden crucible for my soul. It was a chance to stand completely exposed before the Creator, to cleanse my spirit of past shortcomings, to seek absolute forgiveness, and to return to my children with a renewed, unshakable commitment to my faith. I remember sitting with my extended family on the eve of our departure, the living room filled with the warmth of Egyptian tea and sweet basbousa. I tried to articulate to them how much this meant to me. I explained that I wasn't just traveling to see a holy site. I was entering a spiritual furnace where I hoped to be molded into a better version of myself. I felt incredibly, deeply blessed. When the day of departure finally arrived, my excitement was tempered by a profound, heavy sense of awe. As we boarded the plane, leaving the Houston skyline behind, the sheer magnitude of what lay ahead began to settle into my bones. I was moving toward the most sacred coordinates on Earth, Mecca, the focal point toward which I had bowed my head 5 times a day since childhood. The anticipation kept the exhaustion of the long-haul flights at bay. In my mind's eye, I could already feel the collective, thunderous energy of millions of pilgrims from every corner of the globe, all descending upon the holy mosque with a singular, unified purpose: to submit entirely to Allah. It was a humbling, intoxicating thought to know that my name was now numbered among them. The jet lag from the transatlantic journey vanished the moment our transport vehicle crossed the boundaries into the holy precinct of Mecca. The air inside the city felt thick, charged with an electric, collective spiritual anticipation that made the hairs on my arms stand up. Ahmed and I, alongside hundreds of other pilgrims from our travel group, had already changed into our sacred garments. For the men, it was the ihram, 2 unstitched pieces of white cloth that leveled all distinctions of wealth, race, and status. For me, it was a simple, loose-fitting abaya and a plain white hijab. Standing there, stripped of all worldly ornamentation, I felt an incredible sense of raw vulnerability. We were no longer professionals, citizens of a specific country, or people of a certain social standing. We were simply servants entering the courtyard of the king. When we finally walked through the towering arches of Masjid al-Haram, the Grand Mosque, the sheer magnitude of the architecture took my breath away. The vast expanses of gleaming white marble stretched out as far as the eye could see, illuminated by massive, brilliant chandeliers that turned the night into day. But my eyes weren't searching for the architecture. They were searching for the center. And then there it was. Seeing the Kaaba for the very first time is an experience that defies the boundaries of human language. For my entire life, this perfect, black-draped cube had been a 2-dimensional image on prayer rugs, television screens, and framed photographs hanging in my parents' home. Now, it was standing right before me in all its silent, majestic gravity. The kiswa, the heavy black silk covering, was elegantly embroidered with verses of the Quran in shimmering gold thread that caught the light with every gentle desert breeze. I froze in my tracks. A profound, overwhelming rush of emotion hit me like a physical wave. and before I could even process what was happening, hot tears began to well up in my eyes and spill over my cheeks. It was a moment that felt entirely surreal, as if the physical world had dropped away, leaving only my soul standing exposed before the divine. To know that I was standing on the exact patch of earth where the Prophet Muhammad had walked, where Abraham had built the foundations, and where billions of believers over 14 centuries had anchored their hearts, was more than my mind could process. I fell to my knees, whispering praises, feeling the presence of Allah closer than my own jugular vein. The first few days of the Hajj were a beautiful, exhausting whirlwind of prayers, structured rituals, and instant, profound connections with other pilgrims. We were a sea of humanity moving in a grand, symphonic unison. When we joined the Tawaf, the 7 circumambulations around the Kaaba, I felt as though I had been lifted off my feet entirely. Locked arm in arm with women from Malaysia, Nigeria, Turkey, and Pakistan, we moved like a massive, swirling galaxy of faith. The heat of the crowd was intense, the murmurs of thousands of distinct languages reciting the exact same Arabic supplications created a low, thunderous hum that vibrated through my chest. In those moments, the sense of global unity and absolute peace was indescribable. It felt like a true spiritual cleansing. With every step around the black stone, I felt the weights of my past sins, my worldly anxieties, and my everyday stresses peeling away, leaving my soul purer, lighter, and entirely tethered to the divine will. There was no time to think of anything else. The world outside of Mecca ceased to exist. But the true test of the pilgrimage lay ahead, culminating on the days of sacrifice and remembrance. On the second major day of the ritual calendar, after the grueling, contemplative standing at the plains of Arafat, the crowd migrated toward Mina for the Rami al-Jamarat, the symbolic stoning of the devil. The atmosphere that morning was radically different from the serene, controlled environment of the Grand Mosque. It was thick with a palpable, driving intensity. Millions of people were funneling into the multi-tiered pedestrian pathways, leading toward the massive concrete pillars that represented the temptation of evil. Around me, the air was hot and dusty, vibrating with the loud, passionate declarations of pilgrims calling out the names of their loved ones, begging for final forgiveness, and throwing their small pebbles with fierce devotion. It was a beautiful, sacred testament to human resolve, but beneath the surface of the religious fervor, a dangerous physical pressure was building. Ahmed and I attempted to stay close, holding tightly onto the straps of each other's backpacks as we were funneled into the lower level of the Jamarat Bridge. The crowd was a dense, unstoppable river of flesh and bone. In an instant, the rhythm of the march broke. Up ahead, a bottleneck occurred. Perhaps a group had stopped moving, or a counterflow of pilgrims had mistakenly entered the exit ramp. I felt the sudden, terrifying crush of bodies from behind before I could even realize what was happening. The gentle push of the crowd turned into a violent, unrelenting surge. People were pushing from the left, shoving from the right, and the collective forward momentum from behind became an absolute, crushing vice. "Aisha, hold on to me," Ahmed shouted, his voice barely audible over the sudden explosion of panic that ripped through the corridor. The sounds of peaceful prayers were instantly swallowed by deafening screams of terror, frantic shouting in a dozen languages, and the sickening thud of hundreds of boots scrambling for footing. The air grew rapidly thin, and I could feel an icy panic setting into my chest. I tried to inhale, but the pressure of the bodies packed tightly against my ribs made it impossible to fully expand my lungs. I was being squeezed, lifted off my feet, and entirely stripped of any control over my own movement. I reached out frantically for Ahmed's hand, but the sheer velocity of the crowd's shifting weight ripped our grip apart. "Ahmed!" I screamed, but my voice was swallowed by the chaos. The world began to spin in a terrifying, claustrophobic blur. Someone tripped in front of me, creating a sudden vacuum, and the immense weight of the crowd behind me shoved me forward. My foot caught on a discarded bag. I fought with every ounce of my strength to maintain my balance, knowing with a stark, evolutionary terror what happens to those who fall in a stampede. But the momentum was too massive. The ground rushed up to meet me. I fell hard onto the unforgiving concrete, and immediately the crushing weight of other bodies began to pile over my legs and torso. The sky was blotted out by a chaotic canopy of limbs and clothing. I tried to scream, to beg for air, but the words died in my throat as the suffocating pressure crushed the last remnants of oxygen from my lungs. The frantic world around me began to fade. The deafening screams receded into a distant, muffled echo. And then, just as quickly as the terror had peaked, everything went completely and utterly dark. The suffocating weight of the crowd, the violent scraping of boots, and the desperate, frantic cries for air vanished in a single, instantaneous heartbeat. It was as though a heavy, iron door had been slammed shut on the physical world, cutting off all sensory input. For what felt like an absolute eternity, I found myself suspended within a strange, profoundly quiet void. There was no color here, no directional orientation, and no physical horizon, just a vast, velvety emptiness. Yet, surprisingly, there was no fear. The terrifying panic that had gripped my chest on the concrete floor of the Jamarat Bridge was completely gone, replaced by an overwhelming, deep sense of peace that washed over me like a cool wave. I felt entirely weightless, stripped of the heavy armor of my physical body. Yet my soul remained completely awake, hyper-aware, and acutely conscious. In this place, the concepts of time and space meant absolutely nothing. I did not know if I had been there for a second or 1,000 years. I was simply drifting in a state of profound calm, enveloped by an undeniable presence of unconditional love, warmth, and absolute safety. It was a realm that felt remarkably tangible. In fact, it felt far more real, genuine, and authentic than the 32 years of life I had just left behind in Houston. Then, out of the deep, tranquil silence, a change occurred. A soft, ambient glow began to pierce through the darkness of the void. It wasn't a piercing, blinding light that forced me to look away, but a warm, inviting luminescence that seemed to emanate from a central point. From within this gentle radiance, a figure slowly emerged and began to step forward. As the figure drew closer, the light softened further, allowing me to make out his physical features. He was a man of striking, timeless appearance, bearing an aura of profound dignity. His face was etched with deep lines of kindness, and his eyes radiated an intense, overwhelming compassion and intimate understanding that shook me to the core. Without a word being spoken, an innate, unshakable recognition flooded my soul. I knew exactly who he was. It was Jesus. My heart pounded furiously in my spiritual chest. As a devout Muslim woman, I had spent my entire life learning about Isa al-Masih. I revered him as one of the greatest prophets of Allah, a man born of a virgin who performed miracles and carried a sacred message. But standing in his immediate presence, feeling the raw, unfiltered energy of his being, was a reality that completely shattered all my intellectual categories. He looked at me and smiled. It was not the polite, distant smile of a stranger meeting an acquaintance. It was the deep, joyous recognition of a creator who knew me intimately, who had counted the very hairs on my head, and who loved me before the foundation of the world. Yet, as I gazed into his eyes, I saw a profound, aching sadness mixed with that immense love, as though he was looking through me at a tragedy I could not yet perceive. "Do you see what has been done in my name?" he asked. His voice was incredibly soft, like the gentle rustle of wind through autumn leaves, yet it carried an immense, staggering weight that seemed to echo across eternity. I stood completely speechless, entirely overwhelmed by the sheer intensity of the encounter. Before I could even formulate a thought, let alone a verbal response, the serene, tranquil space around us violently shifted. The calm void dissolved, and I found myself thrust into a vision so incredibly vivid and tactile that it felt as though I were standing physically within it. I saw the familiar landscape of Mecca, but the air was thick with ash and the acrid smell of smoke. At the center of my field of vision stood the Kaaba, but it was entirely changed. It was burning. Violent, orange-red flames were aggressively licking up the sides of its heavy black walls, hungrily consuming the sacred silk kiswa and turning the ancient, holy structure into a roaring, hellish inferno. The sight was absolutely horrifying. Billowing columns of dense black smoke rose high into the sky, blotting out the sun and plunging the holy precinct into a dark, ominous twilight. My spiritual heart sank into an abyss of terror, and an involuntary cry tore from my soul. No, this cannot be. This is the house of Allah. Jesus' gaze hardened slightly as he looked at the raging fire consuming the structure, and then he turned his eyes back to meet mine. "What do you think has become of your faith?" he asked. The words felt like a physical blow to my chest, knocking the breath from my spiritual lungs. I had spent my entire life anchored in the absolute, unshakable certainty that Islam was the final, perfect path, the ultimate road to salvation. How could this be happening? How could the very epicenter of my devotion be shown to me in ruins, engulfed in flames? "Look," Jesus said softly, as if effortlessly reading the chaotic torrent of thoughts racing through my mind. "The truth is not always as you expect it to be. There is more to what you know. There is more to what you believe." Before I could voice the desperate questions bubbling up in my throat, the vision began to rapidly unravel. The burning Kaaba, the smoke-choked sky, and the brilliant light of Jesus all started to fade into the gray margins of my consciousness, leaving me falling backward into the dark void once again. I awoke with a violent, gasping jolt. The ambient noise of the Jamarat corridor, the distant, echoed remnants of the stampede, sounded in my ears, but the physical reality of my surroundings had completely changed. The suffocating pressure on my chest was gone. I was no longer trapped under the crushing weight of the crowd. Slowly, my body trembling uncontrollably, I managed to push myself up and stand on my feet, gasping hungrily for the hot, dusty air. My mind was reeling in absolute shock. What had I just experienced? Was it a hallucination brought on by a lack of oxygen? Miraculously, I was alive and completely uninjured. Around me, the massive crowd of pilgrims continued to surge forward toward the pillars, entirely unaware of the profound cosmic rupture that had just taken place inside my consciousness. But as I stood there, smoothing down my dusty garments, I knew with absolute certainty that I was no longer the same woman who had walked into that corridor. Something fundamental deep within the architecture of my soul had permanently shifted, and I couldn't shake the terrifying, exhilarating feeling that the neat, predictable world I had always known had just cracked wide open. I staggered blindly through the rest of the Hajj rituals, moving through the motions of the pilgrimage like a ghost trapped in a flesh and blood body. My legs felt utterly unsteady, and the oppressive desert heat pressed down on my shoulders, but the physical discomfort was nothing compared to the roaring tempest inside my mind. When Ahmed finally found me near our tent, his face pale and tear-stained from searching the aftermath of the stampede, he threw his arms around me, weeping with relief. I collapsed into his embrace, but I couldn't find the words to tell him why I was trembling so violently. The flight back to Houston was an exercise in absolute isolation. Ahmed slept soundly beside me, comforted by the belief that we were returning home spiritually cleansed, our lifelong duty fulfilled. But as I stared out the airplane window at the infinite expanse of clouds, my mind was entirely consumed by the vision. The image of the burning Kaaba haunted my thoughts, flashing against the back of my eyelids every time I closed them. Jesus, words echoed in a relentless, unforgiving loop. The truth is not always as you expect it to be. When we stepped through the gates at George Bush Intercontinental Airport, the sight of my family should have brought me back to reality. Layla and Adam ran across the terminal, throwing their small arms around my waist, their faces glowing with pure joy. I kissed their cheeks and held them tight, but a terrifying wall of static seemed to separate me from the world. In the weeks that followed, I tried desperately to force myself back into the rhythm of my normal life. I returned to my middle school classroom, turning on the bright lights, writing lesson plans, and greeting my students with a practiced smile. I went at coffee with my friends, attended family dinners at my mother's house, and sat across from Ahmed at the kitchen table every night. Yet everything felt profoundly, jarringly different. Every interaction carried a heavy, invisible weight. When my family gathered for dinner, talking cheerfully about the blessings of our pilgrimage, I would look around the table and feel a wave of intense grief. They spoke of the Kaaba with deep reverence and of the Prophet Muhammad with unwavering devotion. To them, the faith was an unbroken, solid foundation. To them, the vision I had experienced would be completely incomprehensible, blasphemous, even. I sat in absolute silence, my hands shaking beneath the table, wondering how I could ever tell the people I loved most that the very foundation of our identity had burned to the ground in my soul. The internal conflict grew unbearable. Every afternoon, I would stand in front of my bathroom mirror, staring at my reflection, trying to make sense of the fracture inside me. Who was I now? For 32 years, I had been a confident, devout Muslim woman. My hijab had been my strength, a proud symbol of my submission to Allah. Now, that identity felt like a fragile illusion slipping through my fingers. I still loved God, but the rituals that had once brought me deep peace now felt distant, cold, and empty. Driven by a desperate, burning hunger for answers that I couldn't name, I found myself doing something I never, in my wildest dreams, thought I would do. One quiet morning, while Ahmed was at work and the children were at school, I went to a local bookstore, purchased a Bible, and brought it home. The moment I sat on my living room couch and opened its pages, a physical tension gripped my chest. My hands trembled as I touched the paper. I had been raised to believe in the absolute, final truth of the Quran, and holding a book that represented a completely different path felt like a terrifying betrayal of my ancestors, my parents, and my own life. But the memory of the overwhelming love I had felt in Jesus' presence, a love so pure it had shattered my defenses, urged me forward. I had to know who he was. I began reading the Gospels, cautiously at first, skimming the pages with a protective guard up. But within days, caution turned into a breathless, desperate urgency. I pored over the text for hours, reading about Jesus' life, his radical teachings, and his unmatched compassion for the broken, the sick, and the outcast. When I reached the Sermon on the Mount, the words struck my heart with the force of a physical blow. His message of unconditional love, of turning the other cheek, of forgiving one's enemies, and of a grace that did not demand rigid ritual but sought a broken and contrite heart. It wasn't just beautiful prose. It felt like a living invitation. It was the exact same, all-encompassing love that had enveloped me in the dark void of the stampede. I found myself dropping the book onto my lap, burying my face in my hands, and weeping uncontrollably. The beauty of the message was breaking through the walls I had built around my heart. But the fear that accompanied this beauty was immense. Am I being deceived? I would cry out in the dark, kneeling on my bedroom floor. Is this a test, or am I losing my path? I tried to pray my traditional Islamic prayers, pressing my forehead to the rug, but the words felt hollow. When I closed my eyes, I didn't see the coordinates of Mecca. I felt a living, breathing presence surrounding me, filling the quiet corners of my room with an aching, merciful sorrow. It felt like the spirit of Jesus, whispering to me from the pages I had been devouring. I knew I couldn't keep living a double life. One evening, unable to carry the secret any longer, I sat down with Ahmed on the couch after the children had gone to bed. I took his hands in mine, my palms sweating, and tried to explain the fracture in my soul. I told him about the vision during the stampede, about the burning Kaaba, and the overwhelming presence of Jesus that hadn't left me since. Ahmed looked at me, his eyes wide with a mixture of shock and profound confusion. He let out a nervous, forced laugh and squeezed my hands. "Aisha, look at me," he said, his voice pleading. "You're just going through a phase. You went through a massive trauma on that bridge. You almost died, honey. Your brain is just playing tricks on you because of the shock." He leaned in, kissing my forehead. "You've always been a devout Muslim. This isn't like you. Just rest, go to the mosque, and it will pass." But as I looked into my husband's kind, worried eyes, a cold reality settled into my stomach. It wasn't a phase. It wasn't a hallucination. It was my truth, and I was entirely alone in it. The man I loved most in the world could look right at me and completely miss the fire that was restructuring my entire soul. I was standing at the edge of a profound spiritual transformation, and the bridge back to my old life was rapidly burning away. The silence that grew between Ahmed and me in the following weeks was a heavy, suffocating thing. He tried to pretend our conversation had never happened, burying himself in the daily operations of his business, hoping that the rhythm of normality would cure whatever madness had taken hold of his wife. But the fire inside me could no longer be contained or hidden beneath the routine of a school teacher and mother. The divide between the woman I was supposed to be and the woman I had become was tearing my soul apart. I knew that the time had come to face the true architects of my past identity, my family. I chose a Tuesday afternoon to visit my mother. Her home had always been my sanctuary, a place filled with the rich, comforting aromas of Egyptian mint tea and rosewater. She sat on her velvet sofa, her hands resting peacefully in her lap, her eyes lighting up with that familiar, protective maternal warmth the moment I walked in. She was the woman who had spent her life ensuring her children remained anchored to the path of Allah in a foreign land. Looking at her, a profound wave of grief washed over me, knowing the agony I was about to inflict on her heart. "Aisha, you've been so distant since you came back from Mecca," she said softly, her brow furrowing with gentle concern as she handed me a cup of tea. "What is weighing on you, my daughter?" I wrapped my trembling hands around the warm glass, staring down at the amber liquid. The words I had rehearsed for weeks felt like jagged shards of glass in my throat. I took a deep, shaky breath and looked into her eyes. "Mom, I need to tell you what happened to me on the Jamarat Bridge," I began, my voice barely a whisper. "When the crowd fell on me, I didn't just faint. I experienced something, a vision. I was in a place of absolute peace, and I saw Jesus." My mother's smile froze, the warmth in her eyes instantly replaced by a rigid, uncomprehending stillness. "He spoke to me, Mom," I continued, the tears finally breaking free and streaming down my face. "He showed me the Kaaba, but it was burning. It was engulfed in flames. He told me that the old ways are passing away and that he is the way, the truth, and the life. I didn't want to believe it. I tried to fight it. But I've been reading the Gospels and his love. It's real. I cannot deny him anymore." The silence that followed was deafening, heavy enough to crush the air from the room. The color drained completely from my mother's face. Her lips parted, but no sound came out for what felt like an eternity. When she finally spoke, her voice wasn't angry. It was trembling with a profound, terrifying devastation that broke my heart into 1,000 pieces. "Aisha, what are you saying?" she whispered, her eyes welling with tears. "Astaghfirullah, seek forgiveness from Allah. You are a good Muslim. You are a mother. I raised you in the light of Islam. Please don't let this delusion, this trick of shaitan, tear our family apart. Tell me you don't mean this." "I love you, Mom," I sobbed, reaching out for her hand, but she pulled away as if my touch were fire. "But I have to follow the truth I was shown. I can't go back to the mosque. My heart belongs to Jesus now." "Then you are lost to me," she wept, covering her face with her hands, her shoulders shaking violently with a grief so visceral it physically sickened me. "You are lost to your faith, to your family, to everything we have ever been. I do not know who you are anymore." Walking out of her house, that afternoon felt like stepping into an absolute void. The front door clicked shut behind me with a terrifying finality. I had spoken my truth, and the cost was the absolute destruction of the safest relationship I had ever known. The condemnation from the rest of my family was swift and merciless. That very night, my phone rang. It was my brother, Farid. His voice held none of the easygoing warmth we had shared since childhood. It was cold, sharp, and laced with bitter fury. "What did you do to Mom?" he demanded, not giving me a chance to speak. "She is completely inconsolable. She thinks her daughter is going to hell. What kind of nonsense are you filling your head with, Aisha? Jesus, have you completely lost your mind?" "Farid, please listen to me." "No, you listen to me," he shouted, his anger cutting through the line. "You are betraying us. You are betraying your parents, your heritage, and Islam. You are bringing shame on this entire family. If you are going to throw away your faith for a Christian delusion, then don't call us. Don't come to our homes. As far as I'm concerned, you're a disgrace. We are done." The line went dead. I sank to the living room floor, clutching the phone to my chest, the darkness of my apartment swallowing me whole. The isolation I had feared was no longer a distant threat. It was my concrete reality. Within a matter of days, the vibrant, interconnected web of cousins, aunts, uncles, and lifelong friends from the mosque dissolved into an icy, unyielding silence. I was disowned. I was dead to the world that had built me. Yet as I lay on the floor, weeping until my throat was raw, a strange, miraculous phenomenon occurred. Beneath the agonizing pain of rejection, deep within the center of my fractured life, a quiet, unexplainable peace began to pool. It was the very same warmth I had felt in the divine presence during the stampede. The worldly structures, the cultural expectations, and the armor of my old identity had been burned away, but I was not empty. I felt the presence of Jesus enveloping me in the dark, whispering a steady promise. I am with you, even to the end of the age. The transition was agonizingly difficult. Letting go of the outer symbols of my old life, including the hijab I had worn as a shield and a crown for over a decade, felt like stepping onto a stage completely naked. But each morning, as I prayed with a raw, conversational honesty I had never known before, I felt a little more whole, a little more free. I knew I could not survive this spiritual wilderness alone, so I cautiously sought out a small Christian fellowship in a quiet suburb of Houston. The first Sunday I stepped through their doors, my heart was racing, terrified of judgment or misunderstanding. But what I found there was a radical echo of the love I had encountered in my vision. They were a community that looked past my background, past my fears, and welcomed me with open, unconditional embraces. A few months later, I stood before that small congregation, holding my well-worn Bible tightly against my chest. I looked out at the faces of these strangers who had become my hands and feet in the dark, and I shared my story. I have lost almost everything, I told them, tears shining in my eyes, though my voice remained steady and strong. I have lost my mother's embrace, my brother's laughter, and the community that defined my youth. The cost of following the truth has been higher than I ever could have imagined. But in the ruins of my old life, I found something far greater. I found a personal relationship with a living Savior. I found the limitless, transforming love of Jesus, and I will follow him, no matter the cost. The journey that began in the terrifying, suffocating chaos of Mecca had led me to a place of profound, unshakable renewal. The burning Kaaba was not a curse of destruction, but an act of divine purification. It had cleared away the ancient, rigid structures of man-made ritual to make room for a living, breathing faith anchored in grace. I still live in Houston. I still teach my students, and I still love my family with a fierce, unwavering devotion, praying every night that they might one day see the light that rescued me. But I am no longer a woman lost in the crowd. I am Aisha, purified by fire, anchored in love, and walking boldly into a new horizon, entirely redefined by the grace of Christ.